Welcome in, everybody, as we get into another week of Hoopsville. We're all the way into December. It's our first Thursday show of the season. Thanks to all you who love our Thursday show for bearing with us. We're finally on the air here with this version. If you got questions for us, all the info at the bottom of your screen if you happen to be watching. If you're just listening along, you can email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com. Join us on social media. You can find us in most places by looking up at D3 Hoopsville or use the hashtag Hoopsville. On Facebook, we're at facebook.com/Hoopsville. And looks like our simulcast is working tonight. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/D3 Hoopsville, where it's most certainly working tonight. Hope that answers your questions. Looking forward to lots to talk about tonight. We're kind of in that lull period, which we will be for the next few weeks, where schools are taking breaks, as it were, for exams and then the holidays, most certainly. So keep abreast of that, as it were. Lots to discuss, lots to get to, lots to figure out. And with that, we also have lots of questions that come up because, you know, we are in this lull, as it were, and we don't know exactly what to make of some teams. Some teams take 4 or 5 weeks off. Some teams take 10 days off. Some take a combination of the both. Some will play up until the holidays and not play during the holidays, come back to the New Year's. Some will not play now, come back between the holidays, and then get back into things after the New Year as well. Lots of ways, and really some programs never have one specific way of doing it. It really depends. So tonight we're going to talk to 4 programs kind of at a different phases of that. Some have games still ahead. Some are taking breaks. Some are not. All of them in the top 25. Of course, with the exams, that's certainly important too. So it's a good gauge as we continue kind of the theme from last show of first month of the season. For good gauge to put our toes in the water, understand where teams are. Some teams finishing up already a third of their season in the first month of the campaign. And there'll be more of that tonight. And then other teams are still slowly kind of working their way into the season with a lot of more basketball to be played. So that's where it stands. We are not going to talk, as I thought we might, with our women's quote-unquote pundits. We'll talk to them on Monday. Talk to those guys. We'll be ready to go. We may hear from all 3 of them, in fact. Not sure yet. But Scott Peterson, Riley Zayas, and Gordon Mann, all 3 of them may join us here on the show on Monday to kind of do what we did on Monday's show in talking to Bob Quillman and Matt Snyder. We'll basically have the same segment with the 3 of those guys. So, or at least 2 of them is my suspicion. We'll get to that point when we get to it on Monday. But in case, if you're wondering tonight, no, we'll do that on Monday. So instead, we're going to be talking to 4 coaches this evening about their programs, all in different places, I would say. Coming up first, we'll talk to the Catholic women's side of things. Matt Donogue would join us to talk about his Cardinals squad, who, not surprisingly, are at the top of the Landmark Conference, or in that fight. But a lot has changed with that Landmark, so we'll talk to him about that. They're the 21st ranked Cardinals, we should point out. We'll keep it with the women. We talked earlier today with Laurie Kelly of the 8th ranked Gusties of Gustavus Adolphus. We'll talk to her about her program and much like, or really the dynamics that she has with hers, with a very senior laden but also very young squad. And much like we did last week with Whitewater, we'll talk about coaching your own daughter. Then we'll switch gears, talk men's basketball. Jason Leone of Oswego will join us. By the way, all these programs we don't tend to talk to this early in the campaign. That's kind of another thing we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure to talk to people that we don't normally talk at this point in the season with. We talk late in the season with. I want to get their perspectives now. Jason Leone is one of them from Oswego. We'll talk to him coming up. His team's on a little bit more of a break before we see them in Las Vegas. And then Jimmy Smith of the 23rd ranked Trinity, Texas Tigers men's basketball team comes on the air, and we'll ask him about the tough choice he had to make today. He had 2 quote-unquote celebrities asking for his time today. I'm using the celebrities very much in quotes on purpose. You'll learn more about it later if you don't know already. But we'll talk to Jimmy coming up a little bit later on in the program. Johns Hopkins got a big win yesterday. I bring that up mainly because they were taking on a Franklin and Marshall squad that I was pretty convinced was going to get the win there last night. And I was convinced because Franklin and Marshall, I think, is a very, very good team that is maybe flying just a bit under the radar, but at home didn't seem to matter for Johns Hopkins, as they really controlled the second half, most especially to get the win 74-54 over the Diplomats. I just bring that up to show you a couple of things. Early season stuff certainly can give us a barometer, but it doesn't mean everything. Teams can start to figure things out at this time of the year. They can start to figure out things in early January, middle of January, maybe even early February. How many times have we talked about a team that no one thought would make a run, makes a run, gets a conference AQ, and is into the NCAA tournament suddenly, and say mid-January when everyone had written them off? You know, Hopkins figures things out under Ryan Kane. They're going to be a dangerous team. And that race atop the Centennial is going to be fun to watch. There could be 4 teams in the mix. You could have Swarthmore, Hopkins probably still in there, F&M, Gettysburg probably is going to be in that conversation, and others. So that'll be a fun one to watch, but I just wanted to bring that one up because I thought it was fascinating. Last night I went into that thinking, okay, F&M's going to get a really important win here tonight at home, put Johns Hopkins further back on their heels, and the Diplomats are going to show that they're in this conference race with Swarthmore. And in reality, it's Hopkins who came back and said, no, we're the ones who are going to mix things up here, and played really well. Guilford had a big battle against Roanoke last night and got the win. Keene State had a somewhat easy time over Plymouth State. They're certainly rolling along. Hell of a game between Whitewater and Hope. Many of us would like to have seen the end of it. Hope's camera operators forgot what they were doing. I know Alan Babbitt very, very well, and I am quite sure there was a conversation today about that. But a heck of a game if you want to go back and watch it again between Whitewater and Hope. Hope showing that they're pretty much on task. Whitewater, does it mean that they're not the 6th best team in the country? No, not at all. That's not what it means. We've been talking about that for years. Mount Union got a pretty easy win over Muskegon. Tufts got a strong win over St. Joseph's of Connecticut, 86-77. I think to cement, in my opinion, that Tufts is going to be in this conversation the rest of the season. They're up to number 12. I think a lot of people were kind of circled that game against the Blue Jays. Listen, this is a St. Joseph team that certainly lost a lot from the program leaders that started that program and have come along, and we're certainly keeping them up. They're going to be in the conversation. They are going to be an NCAA tournament team, I very much suspect. But Tufts certainly made a statement there to remain undefeated. Trinity, Connecticut, by the way, got a very easy win over Mitchell. Swarthmore got past Ursinus. WPI got past Salve Regina. It's amazing how many people I talk to who have seen WPI, who want to talk to me about WPI. We'll see how WPI plays it out the rest of the campaign. Elmer's got a win over Marion. Carthage with an easy win over North Central by 20. Illinois College with the win over Monmouth. That was just on the men's side on Tuesday night alone. On the women's side on Tuesday night, it was a little bit maybe more subdued. Transylvania easily passed Franklin. Rhode Island College easily passed Southern Maine. It is amazing. I came up through Division III. Southern Maine women was the be-all and end-all of women's basketball along with Wash U. And it is amazing how that program is just not of what we are used to. And that's not a knock. Things change, people. They really do. But Rhode Island College got that win 68-27. Scranton got past Drew by 40. Gustavus Adolphus with the win over McAllister. We won't talk specifically about that game coming up, but we talk about the conference slate with Laurie Kelly. Milliken continues to play well. They beat Elmhurst by 45 last night. Smith got past Williams in a big win by 8. Hope got past St. Mary's of Indiana. DeSales got past Messiah, a Messiah women's squad that maybe isn't as strong as what we are used to. The men's squad certainly isn't as strong. We'll keep an eye on Messiah because they're still a good program. Catholic with a win over Susquehanna. We'll talk about the conference race coming up here shortly with Matt Donogue ourselves. Illinois Wesleyan passed Wheaton. Maybe not as close as many of us thought it would be. We thought maybe Wheaton could be in the fight there. That's just the top 25 results. There were certainly a lot of other results out there to talk about. So that was just last night. We'll keep an eye on the schedules tonight in men's and women's basketball. Certainly less games, but doesn't mean they're less important. Only one top 25 men's team is in action. Oshkosh is at Whitworth, so that game's not until much later tonight. And there's a handful of other games like Bowdoin and Colby are playing one another. On the women's side, there's 3 teams in the top 25, all actually in the top 16. Number 13, Trinity is taking on Roger Williams. Hardin Simmons is playing Hardin Payne, and Tufts is taking on Emmanuel. We'll keep an eye on those in case anything comes up along the way. Lots of ways we can interact with you. We certainly look forward to hearing from you as we move further along. We are starting to have some fascinating conversations out there and some things that I think will start to dictate some of the conversations that we have. One of the most important things I think we'll be talking about before we get to the holiday breaks is officiating. And the effort in men's and women's basketball to be consistent across the board. It is certainly improved in the division. But just talking to some people, I think it'd be fascinating to have a conversation further about that with our individuals who certainly keep a track of all of those things. So we'll probably do that here in the near future. And much, much more. I think it's fascinating just how many dynamics are in play right now that could certainly distract us. I get emails, and every once in a while I'll get a breaking news email out of Division III, and it's crazy how I'll read the school name, and my first thought is, oh man, I hope this isn't about a closure. We're going to have to be talking about the financial situations, the Cabrinis of the world. Of course, women's basketball is not even taking place at Cabrini this season. Men's basketball, we'll certainly talk to them because they are pushing through despite it being the final year. Villanova taking over that campus and essentially closing Cabrini, much like what happened to Wesley with Delaware State just a handful of years ago. Birmingham Southern's trying to keep the doors open. That dynamic is fascinating. I think a lot of people are trying to hedge their bets against other schools that might be in that situation. Listen, when the UEC and the NEAC were combined into one conference, that was pretty much the statement. They're hedging against the future. Now, would enough schools close in that merger to create an 8, 10, maybe a 12-team conference? Probably not. We'll see if there's some splitaways. But there's a lot of those movements around. And we talked about cutting costs, for example. The Empire 8 had to essentially redo their constitution, for lack of a better description, to allow state schools in because there's a handful of state schools that don't want to keep traveling in the SUNYAC as far as they're traveling and cut down their costs. So then the next question becomes, will we see that with non-conference games? And will there be a discrepancy between the division, or in the division, much like we saw it a number of years ago, that precipitated a little bit of the Division IV conversations? But will we see this split with the haves can spend to go travel even to Vegas to our event or elsewhere for basketball games, and the have-nots, and I'm being very generic in that terminology, but those who need to play with a tighter budget staying just in their geographical regions to play games, and the impact that's going to have on committees and on selections and on bracketing and all of that. I think all of that is really interesting, and I'm not sure where it's all going to lead necessarily. Maybe I'm seeing things that aren't coming, but at the same time, I think it's something everyone's thinking about. And how many schools? What we had 438 Division III schools this time a year ago. We are down, I want to say 5 or 6 since then, whether leaving Division III or closing. The numbers are shrinking. We're not going to grow as a division necessarily, though. I do wonder if we'll get an influx from Division I and Division II, because the entire world is changing in terms of academics, and athletics are certainly going to see that. And we all love the division, but let's be honest with ourselves. There's a lot of schools maybe too many. And we'll see how that impacts things. But I bring it all up because it lets you appreciate, especially this time of year, the games we get to watch and the student athletes we get to see out there. And I don't take it for granted, that's for sure. Got to see 3 basketball games on Tuesday myself, 1 in Division I and 2 in Division III. And it's fun to watch everyone out there trying their best and the coaching staffs who are trying to do their best as well. And so just a thought on that as we go forward in time and close to the holidays. Quick reminder, we'll be on the air next Monday and next Thursday as well. And the following Monday, the show on the 21st is the only one up in the air. And it's up in the air mainly to say, well, are there going to be a lot of games being played at that time? And if not, we're not going to have a lot of people to talk about or games to discuss, though the 21st certainly has its fair slate of games. So there may be enough to talk about. And the other question becomes, do we have enough topics before we take a break for the holidays? So that 21st show is the only one up in the air. But as of right now, we'll be on the air again on Monday and on the next Thursday, the 14th, and then the following Monday for sure. And we're already working on guests for those. As we mentioned, we'll hear from Scott Peterson, Riley Zayas, and possibly Gordon Mann, and combination of the two, or all three of them, on Monday's show regarding women's basketball. Looking forward to that conversation with them. We are simulcasting live on Facebook, so join us there. If you got questions or comments or whatever, please don't hesitate. We're live simulcasting on YouTube as well. Feel free to join us there at youtube.com/D3Hoopsville, and we'll answer questions if we see them. If you email them to us, we'll do our best to answer those questions as well. Again, coming up, Matt Donogue of Catholic will join us. We'll also hear from Laurie Kelly, who will be joining us to talk about her team. Really looking forward to that conversation. We talked earlier today. I think you're going to have fun listening to her. We had a great time chatting, even off air. So I'm looking forward to having you hear that one. Then we'll switch gears, talk men's basketball, and that includes Jason Leone from Oswego and Jimmy Smith from Texas, Trinity, Texas. Here's a couple of notes. I forgot. I did not call this up, so bear with me a second while I call this up. Couple of notes from Gordon, if this is accurate. I didn't think all of this was accurate, but I'm going with what he had to say, okay? So, he says, first time that John Carroll has been ranked number 1 in the men's poll, which seems surprising to me. He said also the second time an OAC team has been number 1, and the other was when Otterbein won the title. I thought Marietta had been number 1. Gordon's our archive expert. He certainly knows this better than I, and I did not go through the archives, but I found that rather interesting, to say the least. Hats off to him. Quick note on football coming up on the semifinals this weekend. You definitely want to head over to d3football.com to enjoy that one. They released the Gallardi finalists. There's 5 of them this year. That just happened earlier this evening, so make sure to go to d3football.com for your football news and notes. Great content there always with the guys on the football side. With that, we'll take a break. When we come back, Matt Donogue from Catholic will join us to talk about his Cardinals, the Landmark Conference, and so much more. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back with the Landmark Conference and Catholic after this. The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC1927. That's NABC.com or NABC1927 on social media.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
If I lose, I'll respond with respect.
If I win, I'll back it up with humility.
If I fail, I'll rise up with honor.
It's tough for us to put it all on the line.
Don't undo my hard work with poor sportsmanship.
Respect. It's the name of the game.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, as we continue along on this Thursday show, December 7th. Quick moment, obviously, to remind everybody of the Pearl Harbor attacks, which is obviously commemorated on this day. A day that I remember because I remember landmark conference games sometimes fell on this evening. And I remember one time we had Merchant Marine in the gym at Goucher College. And it dawned on me, Merchant Marine would have taken part in that event. So I went and did some digging. I didn't realize how much they were involved on that day and how much they lost. We actually decided to have a moment of silence for that because I looked it up and said, this is more significant than I realized. You just don't realize all the significance. I bring that up because there's a great article that Pat tweeted on D3 Football's Twitter account today, reminding us of a story written all the way back in 2003 about the Willamette football team at the time. Of course, Division III didn't exist at the time. But just to talk about Willamette and that team that was in Hawaii during those attacks. So get the chance, go back and read that. I had a great, not a great time, but I certainly enjoyed going back and reading that article, which I had forgotten I'd read all those years ago. But it's on d3football.com if you're looking for it. Speaking of the Landmark Conference, that's my weird segue into this next segment. Catholic women's basketball certainly playing well. They are synonymous with the top of that conference. It's Scranton, it's Elizabethtown, it's Moravian, it's Catholic. And this year they've got a couple of more foes to contend with. What's ironic with the Landmark Conference, though, is with its scheduling now with you travel on Saturdays to go visit the further away teams, and on Wednesdays you swap gyms to play your closest rivals, meaning if the men's team's at one gym, the women's is at the other gym. I don't get to see this guy anymore. Matt Donogue joins us on the Hoopsville hotline to talk women's basketball at Catholic. Matt, you and I used to bump into each other every year. It's felt like forever since I've seen you.
Well, that's probably lucky for you, right?
Or you. It depends on how you look at it. Hey, sir, thanks for taking the time to join us. Really appreciate it. Listen, we don't, something I said to you off air, and I've said to a lot of our guests this time, I'm making a conscious effort to go, we don't talk to that team until usually later in the season because I kind of hedge my bets, and that way I get some guests later. I'm putting them on earlier this year because I want to get your perspective earlier in the season. But your perspective is different because the landmark is different. So we got a lot to unpack here. First and foremost, off to a hot start. You guys are ranked 21st in the top 25. You're 7-0, I think 7-0, something like that on the season. Playing well, got a win in landmark play just last night. How are things going from your perspective so far this season?
Well, obviously we're pleased with where we are right now. Our focus really is on our continued growth. Everyone in our program this year that's playing is in a different role from where they were last year. So that's really, been a lot of our focus has been on, kind of gelling together, growing together, and figuring each other out. So I think the truly exciting thing is for us, looking at where we are now and knowing where eventually we could be as we continue to grow as the season moves forward. So it's certainly exciting, but long road ahead.
I gypped you. You're 8-0 on the season. Apologies. Interesting enough, you started the season with a game at Trinity. Did you guys walk? Did you maybe use some scooters? That's basically down the street.
Yeah, we were thinking of scootering over there, but our athletic director wasn't real happy with that thought process. So we did take the bus across the street, which was I think we spent more time boarding and unloading the bus than we did on the bus riding over there. But
that sounds right.
Yeah.
Interesting enough, I love the DuFord Center, but I'll admit, Trinity's got one of the prettier gyms and one of the nicer gyms in the area, so it must have been nice to play there.
It's a great facility. It really is.
Hey, looking ahead, so then you went to Bridgewater, you took on Alvernia and Bridgewater, then you played Randolph-Macon, you then took on Shenandoah. Are you planning to leave for the ODAC and we don't know about it yet?
We certainly did our tour of Virginia. It was really kind of quirky how that fell. We were looking to really challenge ourselves in our independent schedule and had an opportunity to play in 2 really strong tournaments against 4 really great teams. And so we got our frequent flyer miles, if you will, down to Harrisonburg, Virginia and Ashland, Virginia, and saw our fair share of the country down there.
Yeah, toured I-81 and toured I-95. Nothing. You probably took you less time to get over to Shenandoah than it did to get down to Randolph-Macon.
Yeah, I would say in both trips, depending on the day, are quicker than driving through D.C. So
that's true. So true, sir. Yeah. Then you got into conference play. You took on Elizabethtown. You took on Wilkes. You took on Susquehanna. I'm looking at our schedule and I'm realizing we got to make some changes here because we don't have the Wilkes game marked as a conference game for whatever strange reason that is. E-Town overtime 78-9-70. I'll color me surprised. Not that doesn't surprise me. E-Town's always been a tough team. Wilkes and Susquehanna were easier wins, but listen, you came out of the gate against a tough one. You had an overtime game at E-Town. Was it key to get that win and come out of there at least with a victory?
Yeah, I mean, obviously winning on the road like that is always a challenge. I think it was a huge boost to our program to go in there. Coming out of last year, they had our number. They got us 3 times, including the conference semifinals. So that was one that we were really focused on, where we felt like, each step of the way in our preseason, there's been, an opportunity to test ourselves, a measuring stick, kind of figuring out where we were along the way. And Elizabethtown obviously is a great program that went to the national tournament last year, advanced in the national tournament. So we felt like that would really give us a good indication, an even stronger indication of where we are currently and what our potential could be. It was kind of a crazy game the way it unfolded, but we really showed a lot of resilience to get the great result there, and could be potentially a sign of things to come, moving forward.
That's obviously, again, a team that's going to be synonymous with the top of that conference, along with Scranton, along with Moravian, etc. And as you said, they got you 3 times, so it was important to get past them. Also, I'm assuming it's about setting yourselves up for the best possible position you can, especially when you come around the second round of games, so that you're not necessarily playing from behind, right?
Well, yeah, you always want to get out of the gates as well as you possibly can. The games this time of year are so critically important. And I don't know that we've always done the best job of answering the bell early in the season. And, we had that conversation at the end of last year about not letting these early season opportunities get away from us and making sure we were ready for them. So, to answer the bell and be ready to play out of the gates here and get positive results certainly is exciting. And now it puts us in a position to have to even, play harder and play better because certainly, we find ourselves in a position to really do some great things. So for us, this is just hopefully the beginning of some things.
Of course, we should point out winning on the road too. So next time you'll play them will be at your place, which seemingly will be an advantage. Obviously, you can't assume that, but that at least is a good, you're not trying to go get that second win on the road now. You're going to get it at home. Granted, you got to play everyone home and away. You've still got some tough ones ahead, but at least you got a tough one on the road out of the way.
Yeah, no, it definitely was good to obviously get the result on the road. And we would hope that, playing here at home, puts a little extra energy, especially when that game comes, when we see them again in February, could be some pretty significant things at stake when we see them again. And fully expect them to be at the top of the conference as we move forward as well. And we would obviously hope there's a little extra energy in the DuForce Center here when we get to see them down the road.
We'll talk about the rest of the conference in a bit, but one thing that jumped out at me that surprised me was the last time you all won a conference title was 2015. There's something about you guys being in the mix, and I know Scranton's been in this, and I know E-Town and Moravian. It's been a tough battle, but I just kind of assumed you had won one more recently. Is there pressure building, at least within you guys internally, that you want to get it done, that you want to get another conference title accomplished, and especially not rely on at-large bids?
Well, I appreciate you reminding me of that.
It's my job.
Yeah. I think, certainly there's always this internal pressure, mainly, that I might put on myself to want to get over the hump. We found ourselves in the conference championship game quite a few times over the last several years. I think the change in our focus this year in particular has really been process-based and making sure that, we focus on the here and now, the games we have in front of us, the preparation for those games that we have in front of us. And our thought process, honestly, and really truly is that if we do that, then the big picture will take care of itself. Our conference is strong. We've had, over the last several years, we've been a 3-bid team off to the national tournament. And, we've also found ourselves in a position where if you're not focused on every single game, then someone's going to jump up and get you that maybe you wouldn't expect to. So obviously it's been a while since we've been at the very top there with a postseason conference championship. That's certainly a goal, an overarching goal that we have in our program. But more important than that is to do everything that we can to control what we can in the here and now to put ourselves in position to have that kind of success down the road.
You're talking about somebody coming up and biting you. I mean, Drew certainly surprised quite a few of the last few seasons. Maybe not going to materialize this year, at least from early results, but you never know. But you also have a new conference look now with Lycoming and Wilkes in the conference, not only meaning you're playing more conference games by the tune of 4, but you're also playing new opponents that maybe you played in non-conference ways. Lycoming right now is 6-1 of the season, 2-1 in conference play. Wilkes is 4-4 and 0-2. What do you make of that addition? Obviously, you've got more games, which means less non-conference games, putting a little more pressure on the conference slate. But what do you expect? And are you guys still trying to figure things out with understanding who Lyco and Wilkes will be and their impact on the conference?
Well, I think that's the biggest thing is the familiarity of it all, right? They're new programs to the conference. We personally, in my time here at Catholic, have never played either of them. So, coming into the season, we really didn't know a lot about them. As you go through your normal prep in conference games, you get to know the players and the systems from year to year. So there's kind of a little bit of familiarity with them. And not that preparation is easier because with the games we play, preparation is always a challenge. But there's that added challenge of not knowing much about either Wilkes or Lycoming. Certainly both got out of the gates in great fashion with how they started. We'll focus on Lycoming when we see them in the new year. But as we were preparing for Wilkes last weekend, we didn't really know what to expect. There's one thing to watch a team on film. It's a very different thing to see them play in person and really know what they're all about. What we found out is they're a team that plays incredibly hard. They're very athletic, and we needed to be prepared for that game. And, thankfully we were, and we were ready to go.
Let's pivot to your team. Outscoring your opponents right now by nearly 19 points a game. And you've got, 3 players officially in double figures. 4 of them, if you want to talk about 9.4 points, which I usually say anybody in the high nines is kind of in that double figure range. Give me a little bit of a breakdown of this team, understanding where its weapons are and if we're tuning into a Catholic game or we're on site trying to watch one, what would we be keying on?
Well, I mean, at our best, our focus this year has been towards balance in our lineups. We feel like each day we practice and play, we get a step closer to that. So if you're watching us play, hopefully you're going to see a real aggressive and clean style of defense. We're going to put pressure on you to do things that maybe you're uncomfortable doing. And then offensively, we're going to share the ball a lot. We'll get out in transition. If you look at some of those box scores, we've had games where our starting 5 has been, shot attempts and field goal attempts between 9 and 13 per game. I think over the first, 7 or 8 games, we had 4 to 5 different scoring leaders in those games. And that's really what we're trying to get to. We've had some great teams here through the years, and I've had coaches tell us when you look at our teams, in past years, and you see this one person scoring, an abnormally high, percentage of the points, that might be where you key in on. And what we've tried to get to is a point where, hot hand gets the ball and we can recognize, a different approach to each game and where we may have an advantage. We've had, certainly out of the gates, Keegan Douglas has done a phenomenal job of leading the way. But at Elizabethtown on, last Wednesday, Carly Mulvaney stepped up through regulation overtime to score 27 for us. And then last night against a really good and strong Susquehanna team, Anna Skoblik, stepped in and had 19 points. Sarah White has contributed quite a bit through multiple games in terms of, being one of our leading scorers when we've needed her step up. And then Carrie Flaherty, who's new to us this year, against a really strong Shenandoah team, about 2 weeks back, absolutely caught fire from 3-point line. And so that really has been at the heart of our success is balance and our ability to share the ball and at our best, an ability to beat you in a number of different ways.
It's a team that's got 5 seniors and or graduate students, Flaherty, the one graduate student. You have 3 juniors. Of a roster of 21, you have a lot of youth in terms of sophomores and freshmen on this team. So we'll talk about this with Laurie Kelly coming up too. There's this interesting kind of teeter-totter, this balance between that senior group that's obviously kind of leading the way and getting you guided up, but then trying to get that experience for the sophomores and freshmen because eventually they're taking over even if you still have 3 juniors left. Heck, I quickly looked. One of those juniors has only played in 1 game. So really, you got to rely on those sophomores and freshmen, if not now, very, very soon. So how do you balance that?
Well, we're weirdly young, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. Obviously, we have great leadership from our seniors and from our captains, but when you look at that rotation of young women that come in off the bench, there's a lot of sophomores and freshmen in that mix. And so, part of that and part of navigating that is really strong leadership. We've got a great senior class and then a really great group of captains with Sarah White and Keegan Douglas and Carly Mulvaney. They've really done a tremendous job this year of getting our young women invested and really into a place where they care about each other and appreciate each other. And they want the best for each other. And so there's a great culture of support in our practices day in, day out within our program that pervades everything we do. And I think that's really been at the heart of our success here in the early going. And it's going to need to continue to grow as we move forward if we're going to really accomplish what we think we can. But balancing that, navigating that is really about just really strong leadership from our upper class and from our young women that are in that starting group right now.
One of the other things you have to balance is the schedule of a student athlete. And this is that time of year where it's the most important. You've got exam period coming up. You got the holiday break coming up when there is no school. Possible J-term if that exists at certain institutions and then the time to the next semester, or in some cases there are trimesters certainly out there. You guys aren't in that lull just yet. Coming up this weekend, you'll play Moravian. Then you'll get a break for 9 days and play a back-to-back against Eastern and Marymount. So you got a tough conference game coming up that I know everyone's got to focus on. Then you get that break, and you'll still, though, get a kind of a tough test in Eastern and Marymount before you do take your holiday break. Yep. How is it with that balance? How do you tell the student athletes, hey, yeah, we've got some big games coming up, but the exams are just as important?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, and I think a lot of that started this past week. We're in final exams next week, and so we're at that point, that high anxiety level of time where, they're wrapping up their classes. They've got final presentations and projects and papers, and that balance and that focus on academics and basketball is a challenge. And so I hope we've done a great job of giving them breaks when they've needed them. And I think really this week leading up to exams in a lot of ways can be more difficult than the exam week period itself. It's been difficult. And again, just talking with them, talking with our leaders, asking questions. What do you all need from us this weekend next? After we come out of Moravian on Saturday, we won't practice for a couple of days because they need to focus on those exams. And I think that's really a great thing about Division III. We talk about the student athlete, and when you get into this stretch of time and these last couple of weeks of semester, that's where it's really put to the test. Where's your focus? What's most important? And as much as we love what we're doing on the court, we love being part of this, their degrees and their courses of study are vastly more important. So, we'll come out of Saturday, and then we likely won't see them for a good 3 or 4 days, so they can just dive into their final exams and really focus in on them. And then we'll slowly start to bring them back into the gym as we prepare for our last 2 games of the semester.
Is there any solace or anything you can rely on, or they can rely on to go, hey, listen, yeah, tough game against Moravian, but they're in the same boat we're in. They're dealing with their exams. They're dealing with the end of their semester. It isn't like it's somehow just us going through this. Is that something that is helpful to at least everyone appreciate that, this isn't some one-off that Moravian's got some advantage or Eastern's got some advantage? We're all going through it.
I think that's the important thing to do, right? The easy thing is to have that, woe is me, we're going through this. The more challenging thing is to make sure you're having those conversations and say, hey, we're all going through this, right? Like every institution is going through it with, juggling their academics and athletics and exam period. Had a great conversation before the game with Gabby Holko there at Susquehanna. They're in the exact same boat we are. They're prepping for exams next week. And then they had to get on a bus and travel out to see us. So there's challenges across the board, and we're all in the same boat. And I think it's important to remind your student athletes and your coaches that, we're not the only ones navigating all of this, and there's some perspective that's important to share.
You then will take that break, as we mentioned. You'll be off for the holidays from the 19th of December until the 3rd of January. You'll take on Lycoming in that first game, followed by Drew, then Scranton. How do you ramp back up without both kind of going too quickly, but at the same time also not going too slowly? Like, how do you balance that when you're coming off of a holiday break?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to figure out a way to ramp up pretty quickly. So hopefully when we get back to campus here in late December, it's where everybody's in the best possible place they can be focus-wise. I think we're all going to be excited for that break when it comes after that Marymount game. The season's a grind. I don't have to tell you, you start on October 15th in most years. And this year was very different because everyone started a little bit earlier in a lot of cases. And then it's a sprint to Thanksgiving and you get a very small break there. And then it's a grind through exams to the winter break. So we'll bring them back. And then January 3rd, we're back at it again with games. So, we're going to have to really dive in to figure out, how to have that build up through the right way, spend some time together as a team through the new year, and celebrate while keeping ourselves focused on basketball, because then you get into that stretch run and it's nothing but conference the rest away January into February.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure you've done it many different ways, depending on the team and what you've learned. Hey, before I let you go, got to point out, you're going to get the chance. Landmark's going back for the second straight year in a row to the Palestra up in Philadelphia. I don't think you guys got that opportunity last year. You'll get that opportunity this year. That's a pretty fun one, to say the least. You've got to be, I know the next game's the most important, but that one's got to be circled and everyone's got to be kind of gearing up for the excitement.
No, we're super excited for that opportunity. As someone myself who grew up in the greater Philadelphia area, to be able to coach a game on that floor is a tremendous thrill. When you look at our roster, it's kind of a home ground for a lot of young women on the roster. We have a number of friends and family and players and alum in the greater Philadelphia area. So the opportunity to make the trip up there and play on that floor in one of the most storied facilities, if not the most storied facility in college basketball. The cathedral of college basketball is really a tremendous thrill. So, while of course we're focusing on the games at hand, that's an exciting opportunity that we're all looking forward to, and really fortunate that we have the opportunity to play that game. Can't thank Katie Boldovich and our landmark leadership and our leadership here at Catholic for creating that possibility for us.
You'll be playing Juniata there on the 14th, 2 days after you'll be playing Scranton. That's in January. Looking forward to seeing that. Matt, I could talk to you forever since there's so much to catch up on, but I'll let you go. I know you got more important things to do, so I appreciate your time all the same. Hopefully we'll be catching each other somewhere down the road. Maybe I'll be at the Palestra. I know Goucher's going to be there for that again, so I'm looking forward to it if I can find the time to get out there. But in the meantime, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for having us on tonight and asking us, talking with us about our program here and what we're doing. And more importantly, I really want to thank you for all that you do for Division III college basketball on the women's and men's side. The level of exposure that you bring to all of our programs is tremendous, and just really appreciate all that you do, Dave.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's a lot easier when I say it all the time. Coaches can come on too to help us sound at least half knowledgeable. Appreciate it. Take care of yourself. Have a great holiday season. We'll look forward to catching up you down the road.
Likewise. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Matt Donogue joining us on the Hoopsville hotline. Good to chat with him. Great to get the perspective on the Landmark Conference and Catholic at this time of the year. I usually wait until later in the year, but I'm glad to hear that one. And there may be more to talk about on the women's side, to be honest. Scranton and E-Town and Moravian. We'll probably be talking to quite a few people down the road. We'll take a break. We'll keep it with women's basketball. We'll head up to Minnesota, where it actually felt like spring out there today. We'll talk to their women's head coach to talk about the Gusties and how they're off to a hot start as well. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. More from us when we come back.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important. But as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We are the coaches of women's basketball. We are leaders and teachers, dreamers and winners. We are professionals who conduct ourselves ethically and with integrity. We place the education, safety, and well-being of the athletes we coach above all else and teach them the fundamental values they need to succeed in life. We are coaches united for the good of our game and those who play it. We are the WBCA.
Responsibility is being accountable for your words and actions, first and foremost. It also is an obligation to be a positive influence in the communities around you. Being in a D3 program, you're going to have lots of different opportunities. You're not just an athlete, you're also involved in student life. Your academics are extremely important. We give a lot of our student athletes responsibilities right from the start by giving them leadership opportunities, by having them engage in the community, be a positive influence. That's being a responsible person.
There are over 480,000 college athletes. Only 2% would go pro.
That means over 470,000 will not get a shoe contract. No autographs. No private jets. No fan clubs. No Hall of Fame inductions. Instead, they will walk away with something much more valuable.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. As we continue along here, appreciate you all your time. We're going to keep moving along things quickly as we switch gears and continue to talk women's basketball. We head out to Minnesota, though, and another top 25 team on the women's side. It's the Gusties of Gustavus Adolphus, who are now 6-0 on their season. Should have been 7 games in, but they're not. And they've got a really tough stretch ahead. I talked earlier today with their head coach, Laurie Kelly. Now joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline, it's the head coach of the Gusties. It's Laurie Kelly. Coach, welcome to the show once again. Thanks for taking the time. Great to see you. Tremendous start to the season. We don't normally talk to you this time of year, so I'm looking forward to getting your perspective at this point. But you got to be thrilled with a 6-0 start.
Yeah, we are. With that early change with going from weeks to days, we were able to get in the gym earlier. So, we started, I think, one day at September, that last day of September. So getting some of those early practices and spread them out, it seemed like we practiced for a long time before we finally got to some games. For us, I think it kind of helped. I brought in a group of 8 freshmen. So that opportunity to be on the floor earlier and spread out some rest days in between really helped, I think, keep us from getting injured. Those beginning pulled muscles and stuff were prevented. And it gave a chance for those younger players to just kind of start learning our system a little bit better. So finally to get some games tipped off has been good. This time of the year, it kind of gets crazy as they're wrapping up their semesters and finals and final projects and trying to squeeze in. For us, we're in a 4-game over 8-day stretch. So we're kind of in that craziness of the holidays of December.
Lots to unpack there. I'm fascinated by the fact you brought in so many freshmen. You've got 5 seniors on top of that. You've got this kind of interesting teeter-totter, as it were, because you got all that experience up top and you've got all this youth coming in as well that have got to get on board and really have a year to get on board to understand what all the seniors already know. That's got to be both challenging and kind of exciting at the same time.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is nice to have the veteran players. We have the bulk. We lost 2 real veteran players for us last year in Anna Sanders and Grace Benz. And so we have a bulk of our top team back. But then now to have these 8 young, talented freshmen coming in, they have that opportunity to learn from the people in front of them. I do believe it's what you need to not just be good sometimes. I think to really have that culture, like for me, I was fortunate. I came from St. Thomas, University of St. Thomas, strong Division III program. You had to work to pay your dues, and that routine of every year turning over and then having those next younger players ready to make their mark. And so it's kind of that opportunity with these veteran players. We have a number of seniors that are also considering coming back. So we'll have a big group of returners next year, and allowing these young freshmen to learn from some really veteran all-conference players and to try to keep that the culture and the norm of your program. And it's kind of what we've been working for here at Gustavus. I mean, we want to win a conference championship every year, but really our goal is we want to be known on a national level to compete for a national championship. And, we're working hard to try to get those players each year to buy into that system and to keep our culture the way it really has been over the last few years.
Curious question, because I've seen this in a few places, in a few different sports as well, where the upperclassmen, I don't know if they just assume that because they've been there, they get that role or what the case may be. But when a younger athlete comes along and is either better than them or they've plateaued or whatever, there's millions of different scenarios, they don't always handle that well. There's some that handle it tremendously, and there's some who just don't grasp the idea that maybe they're going to get surpassed by someone who just came on board. How do you balance that as a coach? And this is a great example this year where you got so many seniors and so many freshmen. Hey, some of those freshmen might just happen to be better than players who've been there 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, for sure. I think that if you were to survey the players that play for me, that they would tell you, I never wonder what Coach Kelly's thinking. I'm really not a fluff coach. They would tell you that. They know I love them dearly and I would do anything for them. But to me, I think being false about something, I'm very direct. I'm honest with them. As a player that came in as a freshman that played, I got to start as a freshman. I started over a girl that had started previously. So I kind of had that happen as a player. I think for me, my job is to put the best product I can on the floor. And sometimes age is regardless of that. I always tell people, if things were even, if I have a senior that's probably the same as a freshman, I'm probably will go with the experience over that. But, I think it's kind of like working at a job and saying, I've been here 3 years and you've been here 1. The reality in the real life world is somebody that's been there a year might be promoted over you. And so I think our job not only is to help them grow from 18 to 22-year-old adults, but learning some life lessons along the way, particularly in basketball. It's easy to do that in a team sport. And that's a perfect example of some disappointments that we face in our real world work world that you learn from those experiences that hopefully help prepare you when you leave these doors and go into your professional world.
Great way of saying it. Certainly a good perspective to give them. I'm always surprised by those upperclassmen who don't grasp that concept. And I can tell some stories even from this past fall. I fully appreciated that perspective myself. But interesting enough, it's juniors and seniors leading the way right now with your team, at least when we look at the score sheets and we look at the stats from the season. You've got 3 in double figures, 4 nearly there, 5 at 8.5 or above in total. A little bit of a step off. And again, this is scoring averages. It doesn't tell us the whole story necessarily, but give us a little bit of sense of how that group is working right now through the opening 6.
Yeah, for us right now, I feel like the balance of our team has been the success over the last couple of years. If you look at our statistical categories in the MIAC for individual players, you don't find a lot of Gustavus people at the top of any of the leaderboards, except field goal percentage, where I think we had the first, second, and third place people in the MIAC as of a couple of days ago. It's really about team basketball for us. And I think that's the excitement. I think people enjoy coming to watch our games because I think it's really, maybe I'm probably rose-colored glasses a little bit, but I really do think that we play the game the way it's kind of intended to play. It's not a lot of, I tell people all the time, I tell recruits, if you want a 5-out dribble drive offense, don't come to Gustavus. I'm a post player. I'm still trying to beg to keep the post play around.
I love you.
Yeah. So I love team basketball. I love that there's a post presence all the time. And so with that, I think that's been a key to our success. We don't rely on 1 or 2 players to have to show up on a game to win a game. I don't know if we have the depth we had a year ago because we don't have the experience at that position, not the talent, but they're not as experienced as the depth we had last year. But we're working towards that. We've been fortunate to come out of the gates really strong. So a lot of our players last night we had 11 players in double figure minutes and nobody played more than 20 minutes. So our minutes are down a little bit, just trying to save some legs for this tough week. But our team right now is in a good place, I feel like, and we're still trying to work on that rotation. It's still early to find out who are those freshmen that are going to come in and play some minutes for you and play a role. And we're starting to kind of, as games go on, keep figuring that out.
We had Carrie Carollo on the last show, and we've talked to her on numerous occasions about what it's like to coach her own daughter and her daughter's role on the team. I don't think we've ever talked about it with you. No. If anyone spies the roster, they might notice a name that's somewhat familiar. And I did some sleuthing to make sure. There's a great picture on social media of you standing proudly next to your daughter when she announced she was coming to Gustavus Adolphus. What's it like to coach her? What's her perspective like? Because Carrie's perspective was fascinating, even hearing from her say that her daughter felt the pressure to perform in a certain way, not in a negative necessarily, but just, hey, this is my mom's program. My dad's the assistant coach. I want to perform a certain way. What's that dynamic like for you and Morgan?
Well, I have never coached her, because I spent so much of her youth time. I was in Division I. And so there was just no time to be involved in the youth programs of your community. I just was gone too much during that time. So I never had ever coached her. I was excited for her when she decided to come to Gustavus. I knew if she had picked a different school, I wouldn't have the opportunity to see her play. So the fact I get to be a fan, at the same time, be a mom and the coach. I always say that we parents get these rose-colored glasses to see our children through. My daughter would tell you that mine are broken.
Yeah, my son might say the same, to be honest with you.
I love coaching her. If you were to come as a recruit or you came to watch a practice, I don't think anybody would know she's my daughter for sure, except she calls me mom instead of coach.
Interesting.
I think that there's times for us, because of high school and college, as she come home from a game, she comes into my office some days and says, "Hey, can I talk to my mom?" And I just take my coach's hat off and I throw my mom hat on, and I just become mom. And so I feel like we have a really good working relationship to understand that dynamic. Now, not that it's perfect all the time, but we have found a really good way. It was interesting last night when we were standing there for our last game. They did our starting lineup, and all those seniors go out and a couple juniors. And I looked at my assistant coaches and I said, this is really going to stink a year from now when it's senior day. I don't know how I'm going to get through it. I mean, I really love this group. I love them like they're all my daughters, actually. And, the people that are seniors came in their freshman year, they were COVID, and so it was a tough freshman year. And we've gone through a lot as a group. And I think it's why I love doing the job that we get to do as coaches. The older I get, they make me feel young still to be around all these young kids. They keep me current in all of the things I don't know anything about. But I just really enjoy their company. And I think the longer I've coached, the more I realize being around really great student athletes is really the key to really finding joy in your job more than just winning games. And I've been fortunate to just have a really great group here at Gustavus.
Yeah, it's cool to hear. Great perspective, to say the least. And obviously you got another at least this season and next with Morgan. Maybe she wants to take that extra year. Who knows? Hey, let's talk about the season, though. 6 games in, what should have been 7. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Off to that 6-0 start. You've got an interesting test ahead of you. We'll get to that in the meantime. But again, how have you felt this season has started from your perspective?
Yeah, I thought defensively, I don't know if I've had a team as good defensively. It's probably become our identity. I've been really, really proud of how well we've defended. The first 30 minutes of the game, which is I'm playing probably your top 8 during most of that time. We've just defensively locked down. And we had a game that we didn't shoot the ball very well 3 or 4 games in. And it was a great opportunity to teach them that, hey, we won by a lot just because we played really good defense, and learning that lesson that we don't have to outscore everybody. We need to make sure we got to lock people down, and it takes that pressure off your offense to have to score. So I think right now I'm really, really pleased with how we are defensively. Offensively, I always say offense comes along later than the defense, because you're still learning that nuances on the floor with new players and what niches that each player has. But I think overall, we've shot the ball well as a team. The last couple of games, not well from the free throw line. So I'm not happy with the free throw shooting. So we're working on a couple of things to get back on track on that. But for to start out 6-0, we've had some depth. We're injury free right now. So there's a lot of good things going, but we have a lot of work to do to get ready for some upcoming games.
Also, if I kind of understand my own life of basketball, but in general, the timing on offense is more important in terms of you have a smaller window of the timing than you do on defense. Defense, you can be a hair trigger late, but you're in a position already to make up for that timing. Whereas on offense, you got to be on time to keep the defense from getting to you on time. So that's probably why the offense comes along a little later too.
Yeah. And, the loss of Anna Sanders for us was our senior captain last year. She graduated as a nurse, had a nursing job right away. So we miss her a lot. And she filled a role that now as she's left, it's not like somebody replaces that, but it's who picks up the pieces of the things that she did. So, she, as a 4-year player, that swag, that go-to player, when we were in crunch time, we needed a 3, you kind of went to her. And so it's finding, even though so many of them are returners, there's 3 of them now that are captains that weren't before. And we have a player coming off the bench that for 3 years that now is a starter. So it's like learning their new role is also part of that growth of your program.
Makes complete sense. And obviously the adjustment to losing a talented player needs some time. You're 6-0 though to start the opening 6, not too shabby. You're into conference play. As you mentioned, you're into the throes of a lot of games in a small window, despite kind of some of the changes in conference. You've gotten past Augsburg already. You've gotten past St. Scholastica and McAllister. You've got St. Catherine ahead. You're supposed to play Carleton. We'll bring that up in a minute. But just kind of the start here, the St. Catherine game's a little bit going to be, at least what we're seeing, might be kind of a good test here before the holidays, before you take a break and then you get really into the throes of things.
Yeah, I look for St. Kate's to be a real tough game. On the road, they play really well at home. Don's a great coach there at St. Kate's. And the thing I notice most about them is their depth and how hard they play regardless of the score. They're coming off a win at home against Bethel. Bethel's always been a strong team in the MIAC, so they're feeling some confidence. He's got a freshman leading him in scoring right now. So, I think it'll be one of a really good test for us coming forward. We haven't, the nervousness I have is we really haven't been in a close game. We've been able to get out of the gates quick. And so that's a test. The reality is you're going to be in close games coming up here in your top teams in your conference and in tournament play. So you have to kind of put yourselves in those situations. And we unfortunately haven't really been, well, I guess it's fortunate we haven't been in that situation, but also unfortunate that you're going to need that experience. And so I look for St. Kate's to be a team that we're going to need to play well. We're going to have to be focused and we're going to have to match their intensity on their floor.
Closest finish is 16 points, so I can fully appreciate, it just hasn't felt close. You've got St. Kate's, and then after that, you're going to head down to Fort Lauderdale. Feel horrible for you Minnesotans to head down to southern sunny Florida, I should say. But you got Rhode Island College out the gate there before you'll take on, which is always a tough Simpson squad. But that Rhode Island College team right now is looking like a behemoth. That's certainly going to give you some tests before you take a holiday break, think on it, and then get back into MIAC play.
For us, we kind of picked a tournament. We were looking because of our limited play of non-conference opponents in the MIAC due to our conference scheduling, which, like we talked about earlier off air, that will be changing. But Jenna's done such a good job at Rhode Island College. She has her whole group back, and a lot of fifth-year seniors. It's a real good opportunity for us to go onto a neutral floor and really give ourselves a test to really see where you're at and give you an opportunity to then refocus to see what you need to work on going into January and February to hopefully make a run to be able to compete with teams at that level.
You'll get back into conference play when you get back on the other side of the New Year's. Interesting enough, you'll start it with a bang with Concordia Moorhead, who's obviously been in the conversation quite a bit. I know that the conference won't be easy, as you said. This is kind of the last throes of the old way. You'll at least get to transition to maybe a lighter schedule, but it's kind of already seen that because Carleton announced that they pulled out of the season pretty much after the season began. I've seen that happen in other conferences before. It can be pretty frustrating, even if the reasons are quite understandable. But Carleton pulls out, you lose those two games. The first question is, can you even make them up? Because that's important for a host of reasons. And the second part of that is, where do you make them up in what is a crowded MIAC schedule?
We are a big league. We have 12 women's teams in the MIAC. And so when someone dropped and Carleton decided, unfortunately, due to their numbers and some injuries, we're not going to be able to complete the season, there were 22 games available in our league. And there's not 22 people still looking to fill their games in that period of time. We were fortunate. The University of Wisconsin lacrosse hosts a tournament over Thanksgiving, and they had a team drop out of their tournament last minute. And we sent our kids home on Wednesday morning. I get a call Wednesday afternoon, and they showed up Sunday morning. We did a walkthrough and we drove over in vans. So
wow.
We hadn't practiced in like 3.5 days, and credit to the girls, they were ready to go. But so it was for us getting a WIAC opponent. Their strength of schedule is really strong, and lacrosse is a good program for the WIAC. So it was nice to be able to pick up a game there. And then we chose to pick up an opponent where we picked up Bethel as a third. It'd be a non-conference game, but we're going to play them on December 30th. So we were fortunate to get 25 games, where I know a lot of people in our league have been unable to do that. So it's unfortunate for the players that have seniors that, are looking to play as many games as they can. And it's a tough situation all around, but we were very fortunate to be able to find those two games.
Interesting enough, that was your closest game so far, the lacrosse game, 16 points. I don't know if that means they'll invite you back.
I have to tell you, Dave, I am somebody that I have a strong feeling. I'm a Minnesota girl. I love Paige Beckers. Watched her play at Hopkins. When she tore her ACL, they were up 30 with like less than 4 to go. And so that's always been in the back of my mind when I like to make sure that I try to get my players off the floor as quick as I can. Now they hate it. I mean, my point guard didn't go in at all in the fourth quarter, and she looks at me but I just really feel like injuries happen no matter what, but I just want to make sure we're in a situation that we can keep them as healthy as we can, and also give opportunities, like I said, about growing your program, giving those players opportunities to step on the floor against lacrosse and understand what playing a WIAC team is like. Just makes everything positive for your program going forward.
No, makes total sense. And it adds up certainly. And it worked out for you all. I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that Bethel was willing to play a non-conference game. That certainly won't be easy. They're a tough opponent as well. But speaking of, let's remind everybody, this does change moving forward. You guys will kind of see a lighter MIAC schedule and allow yourselves to see maybe some more Wisconsin teams and the like. I assume you've already scheduled out. Maybe you're already full for next year, whatever the case may be. But what's that been like to kind of, A, change the mentality you normally have, and B, really look to kind of build a schedule you want?
Yeah, it's exciting. It's also more stressful when you got to find 7 games and not 3. I understand both viewpoints. You want to get your top team forward. And so you would say equity, if you played everybody 2 times, then everyone's played each other the same amount. Some schools do single rounds, like some of the East Coast schools. We don't have enough Division IIIs close enough to fill all the non-conference and don't have budgets to travel the way, some maybe other schools can. So now you go into an 18-game schedule. So there's 4 people you play single round robin. Single games. And so when only the top 6 make the conference tournament, that's the negative side of it, is you really are fighting based on who you played and who I played. If I could be a lot better than you, but I just happened to be a year that I only played the top teams single times and you played them twice, I'm going to get a seat in the conference tournament. So, we hemmed and hawed, but the reality is that the way it was set up, if you listen to Hoopsville, if you listen to people talk, we needed to change our schedule if we wanted to have opportunities to host or to get higher in the regions. For us, we were turning ourselves into what I thought was a 1-bid league.
That was the big part.
Based on our schedule. Yeah.
Yep. That was the big part.
Yeah. So I feel like we're moving in the right directions. Again, like I played in the 90s when 3 or 4 MIAC teams would be going. So, I hope that with this new scheduling, the top teams get an opportunity to schedule stronger strength of schedule. And the teams that are rebuilding, they get a chance to schedule some opportunities for their kids to be a little more competitive in some games. And so I think it's a win-win for whether you're at the top of the league or, like I said, you're rebuilding. It gives your opportunities to do what's best for your program.
I can't remember the ODAC model, but I want to say it's 50-50. So half the teams you play twice, half the teams you play single, and it rotates every year. And I'm assuming rotates a little bit there. So there's another idea too, that the ODAC, that I always call it the ODAC model. I personally think it works out, and we'll look forward to seeing how it plays out down the road. Hey, taking a lot of your time. Quick question before we let you go. You mentioned St. Thomas. It's still bittersweet that we don't have them still in Division III. But what's it like now to be watching your alma mater as a D1 program?
Well, I always joke, my teammates from St. Thomas are my very best friends. There's 7 of us that get together. We're all heading down to Marco Island in May. We have a Christmas party next week. Like, it's the thing I got out of college athletics that I value the most, are these women that have become my lifetime friends. And it's fun because I can cheer for them now because they're not an opponent. I feel like it's we all won a national championship together. So that experience with them is what I think drives me so hard to want to try to provide that opportunity to have that same experience for my student athletes here at Gustavus. I think being a college athlete, I used to joke, Dave, I would give 10 years of my life to go back and do 4 more years. But now that I'm in the 50-year club, I don't got 10 more years to give, but I'm happy. And I miss St. Thomas, but I love that I get to cheer them on. Heading up to a game next week. Actually, one of my teammates' daughters plays on the team, Jordan Lampker. So it's been fun to see a Division I program up here that hopefully they'll keep growing and get ready to really dominate, hopefully in the next few years here in the Summit.
Very cool. Always love your perspective, and thanks for sharing it. Can't wait to see how they play out too. Maybe one of the rare teams, I should say, that I keep track of once they leave Division III. The rest are all dead to me. They're all dead to me. Yeah. St. Thomas, maybe not so much. Aww. Hey, Laurie, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much, especially coming on during this busy time of year. We wish you luck the rest of the way. Have a great holidays as well. Have a wonderful trip to Florida. As always, though, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who might be tuned in?
No, just everybody that supports Division III athletics. They're a special group of people, and I appreciate the support and the attention that you give to our programs. And I know the student athletes really appreciate it as well. So for all the listeners, happy holidays, and thank you again for your support.
Well, thank you. It's a lot easier when we get coaches like yourself on the show, so I appreciate it. Take care of yourself, enjoy it, and I'm quite sure we'll be talking soon.
Thanks.
Laurie Kelly joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Thanks to Laurie Kelly coming on the show earlier today. Really appreciate her taking the time. Quick note, they've got, again, Rhode Island College and Simpson coming up down in Fort Lauderdale on December 20th and 21st. So they got a little bit of time off. I should point out, actually, they'll play St. Cat's coming up on Saturday. Then they've got Rhode Island College. 4th-ranked team in the D3Hoops.com top 25, and a tough Simpson squad coming up in Florida. A quick note, we were talking about that dynamic of a daughter and a coach and all of that, and she said she calls her mom, etc. Funny story, I was reminded of this fall. Jeff Miller, the athletics director at Goucher College, was put into the Hall of Fame there. He had served for eons. He was a mentor to so many student athletes like myself. His daughter attended Goucher College, and he jokes about it. She had arrived on campus. She was a student. It was early on, probably in the preseason and stuff, and she goes walking past him and says, "Hey, Mr. Miller," and completely took him back. There was no dad. There wasn't, anything along those lines. It was what we called him. Everybody called him Mr. Miller. And he asked her in a private moment later, what was that all about? She said, well, I didn't want to feel like I was being treated differently or there were different expectations for everybody. Everybody calls you Mr. Miller. I'm going to call you Mr. Miller, except when she needed her dad, obviously. Just a difference in those dynamics between people and when they're coaching their own or they have their own with them in the athletics department. I always find those dynamics rather interesting. We'll take another break. When we come back, we'll go back live. Jason Leone joining us. I don't know if he's had to shovel himself out of any snow recently, but we'll check in with him to see how much is fallen on the Great Lakes there in Oswego. Talk about his squad and how they are climbing higher in the top 25. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back with so much more. Because after him, by the way, we still have Trinity's head coach and his celebrity status recently. Back with more after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Coach of the Year, Administrator of the Year, All-America Team, Wade Trophy. The WBCA doesn't just honor coaches, but players, administrators, and much more. The WBCA strives to honor those who have contributed to the advancement of women's basketball. Celebrate the present, honor the past, look to the future.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue. Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
We are calling you, all of you. We are calling all Division III schools to join our cause.
It's on us to start the change. It's on us to be the change. It's on us. It's on Division III. It's on all of us to stop sexual assault.
I learned a lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go into personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. As we continue to roll along, a little tight on time, so we're going to keep things moving. Shifting gears, heading to the men's basketball side of things. Fourth-ranked team in all the land is the Oswego Lakers. Jason Leone's team is playing pretty well. Got a first-place vote out of the 25 who are voting. They are 7-0 on the season. Their last game, though, was 5 days ago, and they will not play until Vegas at the D3Hoops.com Classic on December 28th. An interesting break here, but they're off to a hot start. Closest game was Clarkson, if I'm looking at this right. Well, St. Lawrence was pretty close as well. Clarkson was a 9-point game. St. Lawrence was an 8-point game. What do you read in between that? Probably nothing if you're talking to coaching staffs, because that's what they like to do, tell you that it means all absolutely jack. And so joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline to tell us it means absolutely jack is the head coach of the Lakers. It's Jason Leone. First off, have you had to shovel yourself out of any significant snow yet this season?
Significant, no. But when you grow up in central New York, everybody's definition of significant is probably a little bit different.
This is true. It certainly wasn't last year's Behemoth in Buffalo. That's for sure.
No, that was a notorious snowstorm.
Yeah, that's on another level. You guys so far, Mike probably doesn't love you at Plattsburgh too much. 101-72 was the victory last time out on the second. 104-66 over SUNY IT. RPI, you held them to 45. Clarkson, we mentioned, was an 8-point game, or a 9-point game. Nazareth was an 11-point game. St. Lawrence, an 8-point game. Potsdam, a 28-point game. Is this how you guys expected the season to start? Not only undefeated, but somewhat in control of most of these games?
Well, we haven't played away from home yet, Dave. So, I mean, I'm not going to, I don't want to, say that we haven't played well. Well, I think we've done some really good things. I certainly think there's another level that we can get to. We've got 8 guys. Our roster's pretty unique. You saw us play last year in the Sweet 16 Elite 8, and we have everybody back off that team except for one guy who was a significant piece. But I've got 8 guys on the team that are between 22 and 24 years old. So this is a group that's been together for quite a long time. And, coming out of COVID, we've won 62 of our last 68 games. So the group knows how to win. They're very, very connected. But it certainly presents some challenges in that, expectations have been high. So keeping them engaged on a daily basis has been one of our challenges, but they've been pretty mature about things. If I had to pick out something that's been a little tricky for us is we've played in spurts quite a bit where show signs for 4 or 5 minutes that, we can be a really good team. And then there's been times where, we don't exhibit great habits and, kind of have let some teams after big leads come back into the game. But we've played albeit at home, we've played a challenging schedule to this point. So, our league, our region doesn't get as much notoriety, I think, as some of the other regions. We don't, other than Rochester and NYU, we don't have one of those power Division III conferences in our state. So, but if you watch St. Lawrence, Clarkson play, those are two teams. If you look at the teams they've played well. And obviously our games were close against both of them. You look at a team, out of the Skyline, Farmingdale State. I think although we haven't played them, I watched them the other day just randomly, and they play great offensive basketball. So, I think we've got some really good teams in this region, and I'm pleased with where we're at right now. While we're still kind of getting healthy, our point guard hasn't been 100% all year, and we missed another key piece off our bench that's just getting back into the fold now. So cautiously optimistic. We've always been a team that's played a little bit better in the second semester. So our trajectory I'm excited about, but we still got some work left to do.
Interesting dynamic again that you've played all those games at home, really outside of the Vegas trip, which we'll talk about. Your first true road game won't be until January 9th when you head off to Brockport for conference play. Not Brockport, apologies, SUNY Oneonta in conference play. Just a quirk of the schedule? I assume that wasn't an intended plan on your part.
Yeah, so we played all of our last year. The quirk was actually last year. We played all of our games out of conference away from home. So we had a bunch of those things coming back. We host a tip-off tournament every other year. We switch off with our women. So that contributes to, some of the quirk of the scheduling and that type of thing. The year where we played everybody away from home last year, some of those games were neutral site games, so they weren't true road games. So, so a little bit of a quirk of the schedule. And our two conference games happened to just be at home randomly this year. So that's why we had 7 straight.
Obviously, the conference schedule you can't be completely in control of. Hey, you got this long layoff now until Vegas. Yep. You're off until the 2nd until the 28th. Another little quirk there. I mean, I'm used to long breaks, but 26 days between games. Obviously, there's exams. We've been talking to all the coaches about that, and there's that dynamic to understand that. But was there an interest in maybe getting a game or two done if you could in mid-December so it's not as long a break? Or did you purposely want to have a bit of a break to give the guys a chance to kind of recuperate?
That's a good question. We kind of had reciprocal dates that had lined up from the previous year. There was one opponent where we looked at maybe doing something a little later, but our exam schedules didn't match up. I will say just traditionally from looking at the way our team has played, I don't know if there's a rhyme or reason to this, Dave, but I actually don't mind. Like, we're in classes this week and then have finals next week. It seems like that week leading up to exams, we've never played well in that week. So being done the week before classes end, I thought we were pretty sharp last weekend, and we're eliminating maybe that weekend of games where maybe we're just kind of tired and lethargic just because of all the mental side of thing that going into exams. So, look at the way that Division III is set up with our little break that we get around the holidays. It's just one of the challenges that we deal with as coaches with scheduling. At some point, you're going to have maybe a break in between games that you don't necessarily, like. So I'd rather have this also than playing too many games in our conference in the first semester. I don't enjoy that either. So it'll be fine. We're practicing these 2 weeks. Our guys have actually had a really good attitude about things, and we've been really sharp. And it gives us some prep time for the games in Vegas. We're going to play 2 outstanding opponents out there.
Yeah, interesting dynamic. Matt Donogue was saying that at Catholic. He's saying that the week prior to the exams is really the more stressful one than the week of exams. So it's interesting to hear you say that.
I would agree.
Yeah, that as well. And yes, you will have most of your conference games, but just quickly, and I'm not looking at the entire schedule. I'm only seeing a part of January right now in front of me. There is a dynamic there where you're playing 4 games in 7 days. So, 7-8 days, depending on how you look at it. So, yeah, I can understand wanting to play them in the second half, but you also get them squeezed in. Yeah, let's talk about Vegas. Good chance to preview that ahead. I've told several people when you contacted me and said I wanted to go to Vegas, I was certainly excited. When Todd contacted me and said I want to go to Vegas, I went, oh, and said, you two are going to play each other. I don't care what you like it or not. I don't remember Todd's reaction. I remember yours was, yes, please. That's why we're coming out there, which is the attitude we love. How do you, though, get ready for a Case Western Reserve team when you're not going to have any kind of tune-up, as it were, since January 2nd? You say you're going to practice and stuff, but do you have a mentality on how you guys will get ready to kind of just go right back in? You're not only just starting back into basketball on the 28th, you're going into the fire.
Yeah. Well, I think at that point, one of the things is you rely on the veteran spirit of your team, right? We've got guys. I mean, look at the guys we're at an institution where typically we've always tried to take one of these types of trips every 4 years, but given everything that had happened with COVID, I wanted to do something a little extra special with this group. They've had such a great run, and it's not just the on the court victories, but just the way that they have handled everything. In terms of the preparation, I'm going to rely on their veteran leadership and their approach. I think they're going to be really excited to go out there regardless of who we play. So I really am not worried about enthusiasm or preparation. I think our team will play the way that, we're supposed to play. Case Western is a terrific team. I've watched all the film, and they have no weaknesses, offensively, especially. They can beat you in so many different ways, and they're a lot bigger than us. So there'll be some contrasting styles about the game that I think will be noteworthy. But we're going to have to play really well to win. They do some things that I think can really bother us. And, and obviously, I don't think they've lost to this point. And, there's a chance that they'll be undefeated as well. So it'll be a great game for our level, obviously for our program, to play a team out of the UAA that, has some high preseason expectations like we do. This is only going to make us better whether we win or lose.
And we should point out you got Pomona Pitzer in the other game, so that's going to be another dandy of a.
They're unbelievable too. I watched them
NCAA tournaments.
live.
Yeah, NCAA tournament type teams with these, which gives me a chance to ask you about the NCAA tournament last year. You guys knock off Randolph-Macon at their place in a dandy of a game, and then just struggle in that next game with a really tough Whitewater squad. Is that still stinging a little bit for all of you, or is it one of those where you're just the emotions of excitement that you even had those opportunities and know you can improve upon it driving the ship?
I think look at it, it's not like a huge secret. Like we're not coming out of a power conference at our level, and I thought I think our team is this particular group. The last 3 years, I have felt like we are a team that can compete with anybody in the country, and we had kind of been knocking at the door, as you might say. We had a tough loss at Marietta the year before, where we were ahead 8 points, I think, with 10 or 11 minutes to go, and didn't finish the deal there. And they were better than us, but we played really well, and we had the right chip on our shoulder, I felt like. And you play the way that we played against Macon. We played our very best game. They probably weren't expecting us to play the way we did. So we might have caught them a little bit. And then to turn around the next day, Whitewater had something to do with it, but I didn't feel like we played to our capability. So we had a couple of starters that didn't have their normal game, and certainly not blaming those guys. One of them was playing with a pretty significant injury, which, you hate to mention on air, but, it did happen. And, we lost a 1-possession game, and you just look at no matter who you are, when you're a possession away from going to the Final Four, nothing's guaranteed in sports, right? So you just don't know if or when you'll ever get back to that point. So, but I'm very cautious with our team to have them have a measurable thought process about what happens at the end of this year define what our team is or what we've been for these last 3 years. I think it's very difficult, and it's not really responsible to measure your team based on, making the NCAA tournament or an advancement in postseason. It's so hard to just get there at our level, So, and there's a lot of different things that can happen. So, we're trying to really fill our guys' heads with, make sure they enjoy every minute with each other, because this has been a special nucleus of guys.
Tell me about this nucleus. You got 4 guys essentially in double figures, with Sparks leading the way at 19.4, Anderson 11.2, 10.7 from Crittenden. Bowman's got 9.9. You've got other guys too, I know. But tell me a little bit about this squad. You've given us some hints, but what's it? What clicks? Who are the go-tos? How does it work, etc.?
Well, we've got the classic positionless type team. So the way a lot of people are playing now. So we've got guys that play bigger than their size, and I think our quickness is a strength. Our ability to kind of beat teams in a few different ways is a strength. We don't shoot it quite as well as we did last year, but there's some other things we do offensively better than we did the previous year. I just think we've got really talented, our better players combine the ability to score with understanding how they're supposed to play when they're double teamed, and our pieces just seem to fit with this group. And we have so many guys that have given up a lot of their individual accolades so our team can play the way that we've played these last couple of years. And that's probably the best compliment I can give our team. Is I think last year, Dave, we had 8 different guys on our team have a game with over 20 points in a game. Maybe it was 7, but that nonetheless, you get where I'm going with this. We've got great balance on our team. And I think we have the ability to win games in different ways. We can win a game in the 50s, like we did against John Carroll last year. We play multiple defenses, when we can win a game that's in the 80s and 90s, so those give you a good chance when you play good teams, later on in the season.
You've got 7 graduate or senior students. You've got 4 juniors. 3 sophomores, 2 freshmen. I read between the lines, it feels like this is the year you got to take advantage of it. You certainly might get some great recruits in and be able to keep it going, but you've been building to this point.
Well, I think what I've noticed from coaching at the level for as long as I have is we've got a guy or 2 that I think are All-American level players, right? So typically, not all the time, the teams that make deeper runs have at least one of those guys. You saw our guy Jeremiah play last year, and I think he had 35, 12, and 7 against Whitewater in the Elite 8. Played great the night before against Macon. Our point guard, Key Anderson, is a difference maker. So we've got that quote unquote, I think higher level player that can get their own shot in a pinch, which I think you need when you play really good teams. But those guys are also committed players on the other end of the floor defensively as well. They set a good tone. So, and they can beat you, in different ways. They can get to the foul line. They're good foul shooters. They can make the 3, and they certainly can play off the bounce a little bit. So, so I think, obviously, I don't think we're going anywhere after this year. We still return some good guys that'll just take different roles. But in terms of like the initial preseason, we may not just pick up where we left off like we have the last couple of years, because we've had so many returning guys. There'll be a learning experience next year in the beginning of the year. But, like I said, this group has been, they've been a pleasure.
Quickly pivot to your conference. It's always going to be tough, though some changes. Obviously, Brockport, Greg Dunn has left. That team's a little bit different. You've had some other ebbs and flows. New Paltz might be an interesting team to watch. But in the future, Geneseo and Brockport announcing they're leaving for the Empire 8. There's some other changes afoot. There's been rumors, I've heard of plenty, of schools in that conference that could also splinter and go elsewhere. Maybe that conference brings in some others from elsewhere. It's kind of surprising to see the SUNYAC going through some ebbs and flows right now. It's got to be a little bit surprising from your perspective too.
Yeah, it is. So it is. But those are things that, happen at a higher level, and, you're in a position as a coach where you just get told what happens, and, we roll with it. Right. I mean, that's kind of what we do as coaches and administrators is, things go on, and, these leagues, 30 years ago, before when I was still playing, were a lot different as well. I know upstate Division III schools that recruited me in high school, they were in much different leagues, and there was change.
Yeah.
But our league is unique because it's a public school league, right? So it is a little surprising to see public schools leave a public school league and go elsewhere. But that's happened, and one thing you would probably agree with is, you got to always move forward, right? So things will play out, and life goes on, as they say. So
yeah, and who knows what ultimately may change. And I was going to start to say, hey, so have you ever started to look at scheduling already? Because you'll have a few extra games to schedule, but who knows? They may fill the hole for all we know with somebody. But still, that dynamic could make it more interesting for you guys in terms of how you schedule, who you schedule, and whatnot.
Of course, yeah. Like we're always very adamant and upfront. We want to try to play the very toughest non-conference schedule we can. Just philosophically, that's going to make us better. And on the years where we do have a team that we feel like that can compete at the national level, you clearly got to schedule that way in order to have an opportunity to compete in the NCAA tournament, if that's what your goals are.
Well, sir, I appreciate the time you gave us. Certainly an interesting perspective. I can't wait to see you in Vegas. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Likewise. I'm glad this finally came to fruition, So you and I have been talking about this for a few years now. And, I'm thankful for our administrators and our, alums and the people that stepped up to make this thing happen. And it's going to be an awesome game. Like, we've got great respect for Case and Pomona. You're right. I called you and I said, we want to play the two very best teams that we can possibly play out there. And you guys made that happen. And we've got some other good teams that I saw are going out there, Trinity and Clark, right?
Yep.
So I'm excited to watch some really high level Division III basketball, and seeing the sun at that time of year is not something we get a chance to do in upstate New York too often. So I'm assuming the sun will be out in Vegas, right? I mean,
usually I'm usually in an arena. I don't get to see it as much as I'd like to claim I do, but I will point to you where the ski resort is in nearby. I will point to the mountains so you can see some snow, so you feel at least a little bit like you're at home.
No, that's okay. You don't have to do that.
Okay. Well, I might do it anyway.
I appreciate you, friend.
Hey, Jason, appreciate it as always. We give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
Really excited about our group this year, and excited to be back. At this time of year, every day that goes by, we're getting closer to, conference play and all the fun games that go on mid-January and on. And, this year's no different. It's going to be a lot of fun. And Vegas is going to be, I know I keep bringing it up, but we're really excited to be participating in this event. It's truly one of the best, Division III national tournaments out there. And this is such a big deal for our program. So we're really excited about it.
Well, we're looking forward to having you out there in Case, and as you said, Pomona, Pitzer, and all these great teams. It's going to be a blast. Looking forward to it ourselves. Looking forward to having you there, and safe travels. I look forward to seeing you there, and enjoy the holidays in the meantime.
You too. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Definitely, bud. Take care of yourself.
Okay.
Jason Leone, joining us. Hoopsville Hotline. Appreciate him taking the time. Join us. Going to come back. When we do come back, we're going to be grilling Jimmy Smith on his choices you had to make between a couple of quote-unquote celebrities today. He made some interesting choices, and we'll grill him about them. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3 Hoops. Back with more. And Trinity, Texas, when we come back. The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit nabc.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC 1927. That's nabc.com or NABC 1927 on social media.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, then I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
These are your teams, your players, your community of fans. This is where they play, where they practice, where you cheer. At every meet, every event, every game. Your community is passionate, dedicated, supportive. You know the tension of a close game and the thrill of the win. So while you're cheering, keep an eye out for anything out of the ordinary. If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
I learned a lot of valuable lessons playing college football. I never thought about the health benefits of exercise until I actually started to talk to coaches in college. It's not only just for performance, it's for life. My coaches instilled the importance of well-being, not only building up strength, mental health, getting enough sleep, eating properly is all what it is to be healthy. I decided that I want to go on a personal trainer and share my knowledge that I obtained in college about physical and mental well-being.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com. Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, as we continue on this Thursday show. Our first Thursday show of the season, by the way. Thanks to everybody tuning in. If you got questions for us, the information's on your screen. You can always email us. You can reach out on social media if you need, et cetera, et cetera. I hope I haven't missed any messages. Doing my best to stay on top of things. I will admit I haven't checked our live stream simulcasts recently. I probably should have done that, and I apologize. So far, Amber Leone was listening to the show. Should have noticed that sooner. Oh, my bad. My favorite fan was listening to the show when Jason was on it, but we'll let that one slide for now. But again, if you got ways to contact us, let us know. We joked earlier. So Jimmy Smith of Trinity, Texas was going to pre-record with us earlier in the day, and I'm in the middle of another interview, and he calls. I can't take the call, and I get a text message, and I read it, and he says he has a tough choice to make. And I realize that he's got a tough choice between 2 celebrities, and it felt like an unfair choice. So we're going to start off as Jimmy joins us on the Hoopsville hotline here to discuss the fact that you had to choose, sir, between 2, and I'm using the celebrity term very loosely here,
just so I could somehow weasel my way into this choice. It was either pre-record an interview with me or do what? What was your option, sir?
I got a chance to play basketball with Adam Sandler today. So it was a tough choice. As I was trying to contact you, our office looks down onto the court. I saw Adam down there and I panicked. I felt a lot of pressure. So I just ran down there and got in the game.
We're superimposing the picture rather ugly over the two of us right now. So there is the picture of Adam Sandler, dead center. Jimmy, I notice, is right behind him, so security must have cleared you. I also see our good friend on the women's side of things there. I do see Cameron Hill sitting there in the picture, along with some others. But, sir, what an opportunity that is. That's a bit of a coup.
It was a lot of fun. Been a lot of talk over the last couple of days if he was going to come play or not. He's doing a comedy show here in San Antonio and ended up showing up. And so we threw a game together and had a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're showing a little close up now to show that it is Adam Sandler there with you in the backdrop. I kid. I immediately told you, please, that's all right. We can find ways to do things on our show at a later date. We can have you live. We don't need to be battling the Sandman. I mentioned to my wife, though, and she found it rather appropriate that you were playing basketball with him on the first night of Hanakkuh and immediately broke into the Hanakkuh song. She has not stopped since, which is driving my kids absolutely through the wall. I'm getting a kick out of it. What's it like? I heard he's actually a pretty good basketball player.
He is. He really strong mid-range game. And much better vision than you would think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he made some nice passes, caught me on a couple back doors. I'm not as mobile as I used to be.
None of us are.
Yeah, but it was good. He was fun.
It's kind of interesting. You guys are all getting some attention here in the basketball world. And this isn't a knock at either of the teams, but for little things like this, like Adam's now at your gym. We should point out, by the way, he's in town for a concert that you're about to go to, by the way.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, he's putting on a show, which is, you were lucky. First night of Hanakkuh. I have a feeling he might be singing. Just
I hope so.
Gut feeling, yeah. But yeah. I mean, we talk in the Olympics. They added the three person game.
Yeah.
3-on-3 game. And it's your group that kind of, it's interesting, helped the women's team out in the Olympics and was talked about a lot, I should point out, crediting their women's team for being as good as they would. They gave a ton of credit to the guys from your group that did that. And then they went off, if I'm correct, they went off and played in the World Championships this past offseason, right?
Yeah, so we had 6 guys play in the Nations League.
Right?
Guangdong, China, for U21. So yeah, just a super cool experience, and I got to go as well. So it was really special, and just definitely feel fortunate to get these opportunities. We're lucky.
Is it like the Sandler thing? It just happens to be the right timing, right place, right thing, or was there something brewing there already that just kind of evolved into all of this?
Well, the way it started was the women's Final Four was in San Antonio, the COVID year. And they were, 3-on-3 doesn't have exhibition games like the 5-on-5 does. So they were looking for a group of guys to train with this team, our Olympic team. And with it being in San Antonio, we were just right place, right time. They asked, if we had 4 guys that could do it. Our guys literally had to quarantine in a hotel for 3 days, and in San Antonio, they could only go to practice and back. And those guys just did a great job. Obviously all across Division III, we got a lot of special student athletes, and they just did a great job there. The coach was Kara Lawson from Duke. They got invited to go to the next training camp at Duke. They got invited to go to the training camp in Vegas right before they left to go to the Olympics. And we've just kind of developed a relationship with USA Basketball through that, just because our guys did such a good job. So, every summer, some guys have gotten an opportunity to go train with a team before they went somewhere. And this year they asked our guys to represent the USA in the Nations League. So really special. But yeah, just kind of, again, right place, right time is how it got started. And the guys just did a great job.
That's pretty, that's amazing. I'm curious, as we transition to your team, how has that impacted, assisted, whatever, the way you guys play as a normal basketball team on the college side of things?
Yeah, it has impacted more than you would think. The 3x3 game is super fast paced. And, you just kind of noticed as guys came back, the next season after doing that stuff during the summer, they were just playing faster, making quicker decisions. And so we've, implemented playing 3x3 more, in practices. And we've always liked to play fast, but, I feel like we've even amped it up a little bit since that stuff has started.
Yeah, the 3-man weave is one thing, right?
Right.
Listen, I love playing 3-on-3 and pickup, but we're talking a different level here. Yeah, you got to be faster on defense because you could be on defense after being on offense a split second later or vice versa. You literally have to have your head on a swivel to some degree. And while you don't have to worry about that necessarily, as you said, it kind of must help with them just thinking a step or two further down than they had been doing already.
Absolutely. And I mean, the biggest thing, like you mentioned, is there's no time to hang your head or celebrate. So you can get a dunk and then give up a 2-pointer and your dunk is the negative, or if you drop your head because you make a mistake, you're giving up, points and in a 21-point game and that plays over 10 minutes, like you just don't have time to waste. So it's been really good for us. It's a great game. And, I hope that it continues to get more and more attention, as it becomes more popular within the Olympics because it's fun to watch.
I'm an Olympic nut. I love the Olympics in general, and I absolutely got a kick out of the 3-on-3 stuff. Fun to watch. Let's talk about your team, though. I know you got better places to be again with celebrities, so we want to keep you from going there. But started the season down in Georgetown, Texas, playing 2 West Coast teams in Whitman and Claremont Mudd Scripps. Got wins there. You got a win over Concordia and Hardin Simmons and Mary Hardin Baylor in Southwestern and Texas Lutheran. So far, off to a good start. 7-0 on the season, playing well, it looks like. Started the conference schedule so far pretty well. But from your perspective, how has the team done so far to this point in the campaign?
I'm really pleased with where we are. We lost some key contributors that have been with us the whole time. Even guys that, Pat did a great job recruiting guys and bringing good players in. And so we had some holdover guys that have just been really influential in everything we've been doing. And so we kind of turned the page and lost those guys, going into this year. And so we're a little bit younger. We have 2 freshmen that are, really big contributors for us. But just looking at our non-conference schedule, I felt like it was super tough. It was as hard as we could schedule, based on teams that have done well and have done well for a long time. So to be sitting here at 7-0 is definitely something that we're very happy about at this point.
Well, and also ranked, as your alumni friend Ron so eloquently pointed out, that other than the COVID year, which I don't remember what specifically he's talking about, but in general, in a normal season, it's the first time in quite some time that the Tigers on the men's side have been in the top 25. That feels like a pretty significant step for this program. That feels like for the last year or two, you guys were knocking on the door. Because I know as a voter, I certainly was considering you or had voted for you at some point. But it didn't feel like it came all the way through to the end. And now it feels like more people have realized what you've got cooking down there in San Antonio.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've kind of been right on the outskirts, on top 25, regional rankings, all those things. Like right when we kind of get ourselves into a good position, we seem to drop a game or something like that, and then it bounces us out or doesn't get us in, which the level is tough, and so it is the way it is. But yeah, it's special. I mean, it's great for the guys to get the recognition, and just there's so many good teams this year. I've just really enjoyed watching as much Division III basketball as I can, because across the board it just keeps getting better every year. And so yeah, we're more than ecstatic to be in, and we're on finals this week, so we're hoping that we're not going to lose this week. So I'm hopeful this week we can hang in there, before we get back into conference play next weekend.
Yeah, good point. No falling here just yet. You've got games coming up against Austin and Dallas coming up on the 15th and 16th. Then you'll play Washington and Lee at your place on the 20th, and then Chicago on the 21st before, That's interesting. I was just talking to my last guest about this. There's this event at South Point Arena in Las Vegas you appear to be at. You'll be playing Clark and Pomona Pitts. Oh, wait, that's right. We'll see you at the D3Hoops.com Classic as well. Looking forward to that. You guys are challenging yourselves this year.
Absolutely. I mean, that was the goal, is to try to play as many tough opponents as we can. And I think we did a good job of getting people from all across the country, just to see where we're at. Because a lot of times you can just get hung up in Texas, as you know, and everyone's pretty good, and so you're playing the same people and just beat up on each other. And so we really made an effort to try to invite teams down or go places where we could play people from all across the country. So we're definitely excited about what we have coming up as well.
You guys are outscoring your opponents by 15 points a game. You got 3 guys in double figures. Christian Green leading the way at nearly 18 points a game, 14.5 for Tanner Brown. Jacob Harvey at nearly 14 points a game. Dean Ballo at 8.3. Tell me a little bit, though, that stat sheet doesn't tell us. Tell us how this team clicks. What works? What is the sauce, I guess, that's making this kind of come together?
Yeah, it's our depth and our ball movement. I mean, you kind of see beyond those guys, a lot of guys that are playing and contributing differently, game in, game out. And so that's been really fun to watch. We've got a lot of versatility. We're a little bit bigger, a little bit more athletic this year, and the guys have just done a great job sharing the ball. And then defensively, we've been better, I think, than we have in years past, as far as holding people under 40%, forcing a little bit more turnovers. So far so good, but I think the depth of our team, and then just the buy-in of them, understanding that that's our strength, and not, hanging their heads. If one game I play 20 and the next game I play 8, it's like, hey, I get it. This fits this game. And that's hard to do. It's hard to find guys that will buy into that. So this group has done a great job of that.
No, I think that's a great point. There's a lot of people. I was talking to somebody recently. I've talked to coaches about this as well. You can, just earlier in the show, we were talking about, you can have a student athlete who's there for a while and an underclassman comes along and is better and takes their place or takes their minutes, and they don't get it. And either they quit or they sulk or they drag the team down, whatever. You've got to have some headsy guys who are mature to understand that dynamics change, not only season to season, but practice to practice.
Right. Yeah. And I think that speaks volumes, because, 4 of the guys you mentioned, 2 of them are freshmen for us. 2 of our top 4 scorers. And so we've got seniors that are coming off the bench and making huge contributions. And, we have fallen short. We're not hiding from that. We've gotten into the conference championship game 3 years in a row. We've lost 3 years in a row. And so, those guys want to get over the hump, and, they're doing whatever they need to, again, give us the best chance to get back to that game and hopefully win it this year.
I was going to say, that was my next question, is, and to that point of, nearly into the top 25 in the past and such, you talk about regional rankings. This is a team this is great. You're playing all these tough teams like W&L and Chicago, and we're going to see you against Clark and Pomona Pitzer, and you've played some tough teams early on in Claremont Mud Scripps, etc. You've got this conference slate. That's the priority ultimately. Is this schedule going to help you get what you need accomplished? Or at some point, do you just have to forget about what you've done at this portion of the schedule and only focus on what you need to do in the second portion of the schedule?
Yeah, I think it's going to help us a lot, because we've played, Claremont is a very different team than, Concordia and Hardin-Simmons and Mary Hardin-Baylor, and so is Whitman. And, Chicago, I know, is bigger, and W&L's got, some size and some guys that can really do some things. And I haven't gotten enough into looking at Clark and Pomona yet, but I know they're both really good and doing well. And so, I think we're going to see a lot of different styles, and, we've already been exposed. Some of the teams we've played have exposed some weaknesses that we've been able to correct. And so I think playing as tough a schedule as we have is going to have us the best we can be from a preparation standpoint, because we're playing great coaches and great teams, and they're going to find the holes in what we're doing. And so it gives us a chance to adjust. Whereas if you play maybe a softer schedule, you're not going to see that, going into league play.
Is there a pressure, or are you guys feeding off of the women's side? What Cam has been able to do there, again, with the scheduling as well, and trying to accomplish getting into the NCAA tournament and getting further in the NCAA tournament. Is that put on pressure, or are you guys feeding off of it and learning from it and now trying to mold it into your team?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a beautiful relationship with Cam and our women's program, and they don't lose many games, right? So obviously there's a little inner competition where we want to both be really good, but no pressure. Just our athletic department right now is, I mean, we're winning in so many things that I remember 2 years ago, we got in the NCAA tournament and we beat Whitworth, and, we lose to a really good Mary Hardin Baylor team in the second round, and come home thinking people are gonna be like, hey, great job. And it was just kind of like, oh, you only got to the second round of the NCAA tournament, So, it speaks to the level of our teams and how well they're doing. But yeah, you don't want to be the black sheep at Trinity right now. So we're definitely trying to keep up,
Yeah, soccer does well, baseball does well. Yeah, it's pretty synonymous there.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, quick question on your part, because, not so long ago you were at Shriner, then you were at Texas Lutheran for a cup of coffee, then you were at Millsaps, now you're at Trinity. I know for when the Mary Hardin Baylor job opened up, your alma mater, we should point out, we'll talk about that in a moment, you put your hat in the ring there too. But it feels like you've settled in a little bit here in San Antonio. What is it about Trinity and this job, obviously following the big shoes of Pat Cummings? What is it about this gig, though, that has seemed to suit you?
Yeah, I think a lot of the earlier career, you're just trying to kind of figure out what you want to do, and I wasn't sure if Division 3 or Division 1 or what that looked like, and definitely figured out Division 3 is where I want to be, and going to Millsaps. My wife is actually from Mississippi, so we were happy there. And then Trinity opened. I was like, hey, let's just see what happens, and was fortunate enough to get the job. And I actually got offered the Trinity job a little before my interview at Mary Hardin Baylor, so who knows what would have happened there, but have always thought really fondly of Trinity through the years, playing them as a player, as a coach. And Coach Cunningham has been a huge, like, kind of mentor type person to me through the years, has been really helpful. And so when I got offered the job, it was like, I can't say no, and then now being here with our location, like you're saying, we get to play basketball with Adam Sandler and get to be USA basketball stuff, but just kidding. But just like being in San Antonio, it's a great city. The school has great resources, offers a great education, and our family, have 3 kids. What are we, 6th grade, 5th grade, 3rd grade now, and we just settled in and found a place where we're supported and feel like we have an opportunity to be successful every year. And, I think that's all you can ask for. Get to coach really good kids year after year and, have a lot of fun.
Greg Popovich is also right down the street. I'm assuming. True. Yeah. Door's always open, right?
Absolutely.
Your door's always open. I meant his.
Right. He hasn't come in mine yet, but it's open.
There you go. Hey, quickly, you did play Mary Hardin Baylor earlier, and Ryan Scott, Eagle Eye. I don't have a picture that he grabbed, but Eagle Eye Ryan Scott noticed that Cliff Carroll might have been poking the bear a little bit. He's wearing your jersey from your days at Mary Hardin Baylor. Cliff's always a jokester. I hope that was a joke.
It was. He caught me like right before the game and was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And I said, let's go for it, So
that's awesome.
Again, it was definitely in good humor. And, I'm glad we didn't lose to a guy wearing my jersey.
Yeah, I was going to say, at least you got the win, right?
Right. That made it a little bit easier, but no, it was a lot of fun.
Hey, listen, quickly moving ahead, you guys, penultimate year in the SCAC. You'll be moving to the SAA, and what many people have found is a surprising move. We don't need to go into the politics and the minutia on that, but from your guys' perspective, that's going to really change things. One, you're going to have more Texas teams around you. You can play a non-conference. But second, you're going to have a lot of travel now, kind of back to the old SCAC ways of doing it. I know it's way down the road, but are you guys excited about that? Is there still kind of early on to understand really the dynamics that you're going to be kind of dealing with in 2025?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited about it. I'm a little ahead of the curve than a lot of the other coaches because being at Millsaps, a lot of the same coaches are in the SAA, and so have some really good guys and good coaches in that league. And I think it'll be fun. We're gonna be able to fly, see different parts of the country, and there's a lot of good teams in that league as well. And then, like you said, I think we'll get a great mix of playing, these really good Texas teams also. So I think from my standpoint, I'm excited about it just because it's something different. And I know, how good of a league I think the SA can be. But it's definitely going to be different. I mean, the travel is going to be way different. We're going to see a lot of officials we don't know, things like that, and so there's some real things there that we're going to have to adjust to. But all in all, I think it's a good move for the school. I understand our president's vision and why she wants to do it. And, I think from a recruiting standpoint, it might open us up to some different parts of the country as well. So we'll see what happens. But, optimistic. We'll just leave it there for now at what it could be.
Yeah, obviously it's way down the road here. You've got this season plus next season still in the SCAC to get that SCAC title taken care of and play those schedules out before we even consider the SAA. So I appreciate the time. I know you I've got a good show to go off to, so we'll let you go. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
Yeah. I just appreciate you guys. I'm really looking forward to going out to Vegas, and it's been a trip I've wanted to make at, the 91 schools I've been at. So finally I get to make it out there, but what a great schedule we have up there. I appreciate you guys doing that. And I think the last coach came on and said he's excited to watch a lot of the other teams that are going to be out there as well. And so am I. Just looking forward to being able to kind of veg out and watch a bunch of good Division III basketball live. So appreciate you guys, and all the other guys. It's kind of cool to see all the buzz that Division III is getting from the Bob Quillman, the DataCast guys, the Ryans, all across the board. Just seems like more and more people are catching on to how special this level is, and thanks to all you guys for continuing to promote us.
Yeah, well said indeed. It's great that it does seem like it's catching on a little bit, and looking forward to seeing you out there as well. Can't wait to see your team in person as well. And most importantly, looking forward to catching up with you. Take care of yourself. Enjoy the show tonight. Take care. Enjoy your holidays. And we'll look forward to seeing you out in Vegas.
You too. Thanks, Dave.
Absolutely. Thank you. Jimmy Smith joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline. Appreciate him taking the time to do that today. Listen, we'll take second fiddle to Adam Sandler any day of the week. We'll take another break. When we come back, wrap up this show and talk about what's coming up. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Final segment of Hoopsville coming up. The National Association of Basketball Coaches is the nation's premier professional development and advocacy organization for basketball coaches at every level. The NABC strives to serve as the voice for coaches on national issues while advancing the core value of leadership, service, advocacy, education, and inclusion. To learn more about the NABC and to become a member, visit NABC.com and follow the NABC on social media at NABC 1927. That's NABC.com or NABC 1927 on social media.
I used to never really talk, ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's nearly 850 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over 2 decades. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. As we wrap this show up, our first Thursday edition of the season. A little later than we normally do our first Thursday, but we got it on the air nonetheless on this 7th of December. We'll be back on the air on Monday, which is what, the 11th of December, if memory serves quickly. And, of course, we'll be back on next 14th as well, next Thursday. And the following Monday. The 21st is the only one that's up in the air. We're planning to do a show, but if we get to that point, we don't have the content or there's not going to be enough guests or whatever the case may be, we may take a pause then for the holidays, but we'll cross that bridge later. Monday's show, we will be talking about women's basketball. We will dip our toes into the first month of the season from our pundits. We've reached out to Gordon Mann and Riley Zayas and Scott Peterson. We'll see what combination of the three, if not all three, will join us on Monday's show to talk about women's basketball. We'll also get a couple more coaches on the show. And then we'll start diving into some of the specialty topics I want to dive into here this season before we wrap things up for the holidays. Again, kind of previewed the D3Hoops.com Vegas event, the D3Hoops.com Classic at South Point Arena with our friends at with Sport Tours International. Actually just talked to Brett Seymour today about some of those things. If you're interested in coming to that event, we are certainly pivoting that event a little bit more to a little bit of a more challenging event. But if you feel that your team is one that wants to be challenged and to come out to that event and participate it between Christmas and New Year's, let me know. You're welcome to contact myself. I will get you in touch with Sport Tours unless you know how to get a hold of them already. And we will make that arrangement. I'm already talking to a team that was interested in next year, though it may have to be pushed for another year. We've already talked to a handful of other teams as well. There is interested parties, and we want to make it exciting and fun. It is a great event for the student athletes. Teams have gone out there and gone to Topgolf and just hit and enjoyed time with alums and family and friends of the program. There are many who have gotten a show in. There are some who just go up to the Vegas Strip to take the Strip in. It's an amazing place to visit outside of what everyone talks about in terms of gambling. There is a reason that Las Vegas is so popular as it is now, despite its somewhat small size. And the South Point Arena is a few miles away from the Strip. It is a tremendous place, so you stay and play your games all in one location. You're not that far, by the way, from Hoover Dam. Pat and I have run into teams when we've gone out to see Hoover Dam. We have heard of teams who've gone out to the Grand Canyon, I think even, have made a bigger trip out of it and done some other things out there. Plenty to do. So if you're interested in not only getting yourself challenged at the D3Hoops.com Classic in Vegas, but also want to make a great trip out of it for your team, let me know. Reach out to me. I'll get you in touch with those who need to get in touch with. And yes, we are still looking for entries for next year. I can say that rather openly because usually we don't have this buttoned up until just after the season concludes. Sometimes it's buttoned up a little sooner than that. But if that doesn't work out, 2025 is still an option as well. I didn't get a chance to look at scores yet from around D3 tonight, but we'll do so right now. We'll refresh the screen, as it were, and double check if any scores have come in. Some of these have to get updated by ourselves, so forgive me. Oshkosh is taking on Whitworth coming up here about 45 minutes from now on when we're on the air. So that game will be something to keep an eye on. A couple games in overtime tonight. Riviera and Framingham State and Riviera are in overtime. Fisher and Curry are in overtime. Of course, Fisher not in Division III. So that game. Cal Lutheran is taking on Claremont Mudd Scripps. That's a game certainly worth tuning in. That one's about to get underway. Other games have finished. Let's see if we got any that are of note here. Hamilton beat Utica in a battle of the Utica region. And that was at Utica. So Hamilton gets a win 60-53. I've had high hopes on Utica this season. That is their second loss of the year. They lost earlier to Morrisville State. They've got Cortland coming up in 11 days' time. Hamilton, the win. They are now 3-5 on the season. They're not having the season I was expecting. They lost to Ithaca to start the year. They lost to Drew, Cortland, and Carnegie Mellon, and Rochester, in fact, 4 in a row, all those games at Middlebury before getting the win today. This Utica game is a stop to a 4-game slide for Hamilton. So that's an interesting result. I'm voting for Utica, and I guess that will have to be reconsidered. See if there's other games. Penn State Harrisburg got past Newman, 75-66. That's a Harrisburg squad I know Ryan Scott has spoken about. Colby got past Bowdoin in men's basketball, 72-62. That's a non-conference game, I believe, for those two. I'm pretty confident I think that's part of the main three, of course, playing that game. Gordon got past Elms. Amherst defeated York in New York, but it was only a 5-point win, 72-67. I think Amherst is one to keep an eye on just in terms of what is going on, if they're going to figure things out in time for conference play. Brandeis got past LaSalle. There's some other games that are underway now, including out there in Texas. Concordia, Texas is taking on East Texas Baptist. Hardin-Simmons is hosting Howard Payne. Mary Hardin-Baylor is hosting Laverno. A lot of good games there that we'll keep an eye on. On the women's side, quickly, Trinity lost tonight. Roger Williams defeated Trinity. There's an upset, 62-56 for Trinity. I believe that's their third loss of the season. They lost to Smith and Rhode Island College. Now they've lost to Roger Williams. So the Bantams women's team off to a 6-3 start for Roger Williams. They are 6-2 on the year. They had lost to Tufts and Mass Dartmouth earlier in the campaign. So that's a big win for Roger Williams. Hardin-Simmons easily got past Howard Payne. Tufts snuck past Emmanuel 73-66. That's an Emmanuel team that is always tough to play. Andy Yashinoff always has a tough team, though. They are 3-6 this year. They are struggling a little bit. We have seen them in Vegas, but they'll be in Puerto Rico this year. But that's a big win for Tufts women there. Brandeis snuck past Bridgewater State. Mary Hardin-Baylor easily handled Laterno. Looking to see if there's any other games that just kind of jump out at me on the women's side. Washington College and Bryn Mawr played a conference game, and Washington won easily. Yeah, that's pretty much it. St. Mary's of Maryland played Notre Dame of Maryland. Remember, Notre Dame's having its first season, and they lost 67-65. St. Mary's is 6-3 on the season. I'll see Notre Dame coming up in a couple of weeks. They're 5-4 this season. I think I see them in a couple of weeks. According to this schedule, I don't. I need to double check that. I'm quite sure I do see them in a couple of weeks, but I'll double check that later. And that's about it. Oh, that's the women's side. I'm sorry, that's the women's side. St. Mary's women lost to Notre Dame's women. I apologize. I got the men there confused for a moment. Here's an interesting update on that Framingham State game we were talking about. He says, Tom Glynn, this is from Ryan Scott. He says, Tom Glynn decides not to foul while leading by 3 at the end of regulation. Framingham hit the 3 to take Riviera to overtime. Given a second chance, they foul up 3 with 4 seconds to play and get the win. Interesting. Could have gotten the win in the first place, most likely. Well, that's going to do it for us. We're going to wrap this show up. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate our guests who came on the show. Great segments tonight. Really appreciate everybody who was able to join us this evening. Want to thank Matt Donogue at Catholic, Laurie Kelly at Gustavus, Jason Leone at Oswego, and Jimmy Smith at Trinity, Texas. Also want to thank all the sports information directors and staffs who helped us out tremendously put this show together with giving us resources or at least helping coordinate with their coaches. Great conversations with those coaches. Look forward to being back on the air Monday as we do this all over again. There will be a new top 25 on Monday as well. And obviously the results we mentioned in the last 2 nights, some of those changes will certainly, or some of those top 25s will certainly change. And we'll look forward to talking to the guys next week on Monday about the women's. I'm curious who they're voting for number 1, considering NYU surpassed Transylvania for that honor in the first poll of the season. I'll be curious if what the guys feel about it and who they're voting for in that top 25. And with that, we're going to wrap things up. Appreciate you all tuning in to the show tonight. Reminder, you can always email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com. You can get a hold of us on social media. We're on X/Twitter, on Instagram and Threads by just looking up at D3Hoopsville. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville and on YouTube at youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. We're also on Mastodon, but we haven't really done anything with it, so just ignore that. And we may jump into some other worlds too, but for now, that's where you can find us. And until Monday's show, thanks for tuning in. Enjoy some games. Get out there and watch some if you can. And, of course, always go to d3hoops.com for the latest scores and schedules and find out where you can watch games. We try and provide as many links as we possibly can or the sports information directors have supplied for us. And with that, it's a wrap. You guys take care. Remember, if you want to talk Division III basketball, you've got to listen to Hoopsville. Hoopsville, presented by d3hoops.com. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you soon.